Now I want to cover the use of a tripod. Generally, when you set up, let's just say from the ground up, I like to dig holes and then put the legs in those holes, especially if I know I'm going to mount a gun to this. I want those legs deep so if I push on it a little bit, it doesn't slide. As we work our way up, since this one was done by LaRue many years ago, and it still works awesome today, I have a LaRue wrench right here, since a lot of these require LaRue fittings, just in case as I take them on and off, it gets a little bit loose. So I just duct tape it right to the Manfrotto over here on this carbon fiber leg. The next thing that I do is I add a specific sling. And the reason why is when I run a sling on a normal gun, I know that when it's set up, it's good for me to either drape over and or throw an arm in and tighten and loosen. However, we're going to utilize a different technique in stabilizing the gun on this tripod, and in doing so what I find is I need a dedicated tripod sling, meaning I'm going to unhook my other one, I'm going to hook this one in because it needs to be longer, because it's going to start getting weaved around the back through the leg back up to the front of the gun to give it the most stable shooting platform possible. So a red dot on a spotting scope, should you, shouldn't you? The reality is, for me, it works really well. Now, everybody kind of differs on the yard line of where you'll end up, in a sense, kind of co-witnessing where these two are going to meet. For me right now, it's 300 yards. So that means my crosshairs downrange on a piece of steel are set up at the 300 yard line. I take this Holosun and I move the red dot to the same spot. So if we were to fire a shot through the spotting scope, it would be point of aim, point of impact, or if I were to look through the red dot, it would be again point of aim, point of impact. Even though I have nothing to fire right now, it's just just verbiage, so we have a good understanding. Now, where this really starts to benefit me, as it does a lot of others that have been in the industry for a long time, is it allows you to look at something specifically, move via looking through the red dot, because that's usually a lot easier. And then once you stop your red dot on that object, animal or piece of steel, I just move my eye down and I look through the spotting scope. And generally you're either right on or you're pretty close. So you're not searching for this object where, you know, you have people that are constantly like, hey, hold on for a second, I can't find it. And then they got to back out of it. And then they got to look again and look over the spotting scope and move it a little bit and then zoom back in on it and then clear it up after that. It just makes life a lot easier and a lot faster. So again, something to think about in regards to running red dots on top of your spotting scope. One thing about this setup, if I don't want to use a spotting scope anymore, one thing that I like about it is I can take this off. I can do it in a couple different ways, but I'm taking this whole unit off right now. And this is called the Reaper by Cope F. Jagger Industries. So kind of a lot going on there in regards to that name, but this is the company who produces this version. There are many different ones out on the market. And then what that allows me to do is just screw this in right on top. And now I go from a spotting scope to now being able to put my gun here, okay? There are a lot of different tripods that are out on the market. There are a lot of different uniball and setups that are out on the market. These things can go all the way up to $2,500 to $2,800. So there's some serious setups out there. It just depends on how much money you have to spend. I don't have that much money to spend, so this is a great setup for me. It seems to work. However, there are some other things that you can do, and there's some other products that are out on the market as well. So I took this and removed it. I'm just using rubber bands to hold it in place. And now basically I'm gonna hook it through, connect it to the gun. So it's all the way up forward. It's routed through here. And then it's gonna come right back. For me, I prefer it on this side, here. Now I'm set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of demonstrate how I get into position. Don't forget this leg, since we're pushing or driving, we might have a little bit of forward English on the gun. We want to make sure that this leg is in a forward position. So let's talk about this whole sling setup. First of all, you don't have to weave it through here. If you want, you could just throw the sling around you, wrap your arm in like you normally do. However, another option is to run the sling through the tripod. The only drawback is you're kind of tethering yourself into it. So if you got to get out of this thing quickly, I wouldn't recommend this. I would just do the normal sling technique and go at it from there. Remember that forward leg, we want it pointing in the same direction as the muzzle, especially if we start to load this tripod. Fingers, I'm kind of wrapping this portion of the tripod right here. These fingers can kind of come in depending upon where you're at, and I can squeeze it, move the gun down just a little bit and still have some flexibility in there. I can also take this forearm right here and I can just bring it in nice and tighten everything up. I do want to have a little bit of room on the slider going back and forth. So if I'm wearing a jacket or no jacket or whatever the climate is, I still have some flexibility into tightening and loosening the sling. And you have to be careful when you go from gun to gun. So like as an example, when I run a SR25, my sling's out here. So I need a little bit bigger sling when I'm running a semi-auto 308. Now, balance-wise, notice that even though I have this tightened down, for me, the best spot on this gun to mount it is right here. And if you mount it there, what you'll find is this whole system will balance a lot easier. If you were to take this gun and slide it back and put this clamp all the way up forward, the back end of the gun's always going to want to drop on you. So one of the things, especially dependent upon the type of gun you have, your scope setup or whatever else is on this. As an example, if I was running a night vision device, I'd probably have to move this back just a little bit because I'd have a lot of weight out on the front. So make sure that bottom line is it's balanced. Why do you need this kind of setup? Well, having this setup I think is a huge benefit, especially if you can't shoot prone. And then now we're in an environment where I really can't pull off kneeling and or sitting. So I may have to take a shot from a standing position. The more stable I can make this, it's almost as if I'm shooting prone or shooting off of a bench. I know it's a little weird because we are still shooting off of something, but I'm raising the gun up and then of course, creating as much stability as possible. So again, just something to consider. I think it's a great tool to have in the arsenal